Santa Fe is a fascinating mosaic. The special quality is probably inherent in the land itself. But what makes it so palpable is the culture that has been here for thousands of years. That changes everything.
In that setting where you see the sunset and, the vistas, where you see storms coming in across the horizon, it's just incredible.
I love the color of the earth, the browns and reds, the light, the mountains.
You have this enormity of space above you, but also then there's just this beautiful earth and there's the smell of juniper in the air. Then you put a chamber music festival in this beautiful place with world-class chamber music musicians playing together. You get incredible creativity.
It is quite magical to come here to make music being surrounded and inspired and nourished.
It's this very small kind of little gem in the middle of this wildness.
When I'm here, I naturally think of my music making as just kind of extension of nature.
Get to go and play music that is product of some of the most amazing human minds that have lived. There's its own magical thing, and when you hear certain rhythms and certain harmonies, they do seem to affect us on a sort of kind of basic neurological level.
The level of their artistry, virtuosity, it's just some of the finest musicians in the world come here. And that's an amazing privilege to be able to play with them.
Chamber music is really the thing where you have to be with all these people and make something magical happen in sometimes only a few days. The rehearsal periods are quite short between when you begin a piece to rehearse it and when you perform it here.
Is it true? Is it
The amount of repertoire that's covered in the length of the Santa Fe Chamber Music Festival is extraordinary. The depth of the artists, the extremely high quality of musicianship and personalities.
First week, you were almost with her now on the farm part.
Yeah.
No, you were great. You were great.
Can we cover 159 in the third song, please?
159.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Let's start from 156. Okay.
Things come together so quickly. There's never been a situation that I played in that the standard is any less than just excellent.
That's a very dynamic experience because the variables of the other humans, beings that you're around and rehearsing with and working and how they react on stage even. So there's always your tendencies, and then how much are you aware of those? Do you go with them? Do you fight them a little bit? That dynamic is always interesting.
You're such an idiot.
Were you indicating that we're getting ahead of him?
A little bit. It just,
Generally, our 16 says we go through the piece lightly, like from our opening, and that's okay, but it's just when I get to... Yeah, it's good if we're not... It's slightly.
The repertoire is very adventurous here, so it's not only sort of the international standard fare, but things that truly deviate from the standard fare, but need to be heard.
Something that sets Santa Fe Chamber Music Festival apart is its fearlessness in its programming. There's a real courage here in putting on things that challenge the audience, the musicians, and there's a real sense of palpable excitement and a sense of risk-taking.
The way I see my responsibility in being the captain of this festival is to chart a course where I feel that I'm providing an exquisite window into a musical culture which is half a millennium of incredibly sensitive, wise creators.
There's a wide range of programming that is beautifully received by the audience here because the audience knows Mark. Everybody trusts Mark. Everybody trusts his vision.
Mark is a full musician, and he's, of course, a wonderful, important, distinguished composer, but also is an important pianist who has performed for many, many years on all the greatest world stages. He has an encyclopedic knowledge of the chamber music repertoire, and it's really about trust. He makes combinations that are daring and unexpected and presents new music. It's one thing to believe in contemporary music. It's another thing to actually be one of the important producers of music.
I think he just carries around in his head and stirs such a huge cauldron of possibilities.
Mark has an incredible knowledge of repertoire, and I mean, he's also a great cook. He approaches the programs very much like he approaches cooking. It's about getting the ingredients right. He has also a wonderful feel for where to place new pieces so that they speak to audiences, so that they sing with the other pieces that are on the program. They're thought-provoking. You know, they're great combinations of pieces. That's always just a pleasure to behold.
And that's one of the reasons this is one of my favorite festivals to play in, is because he knows how to match people, he knows how to match repertoire, and that's an art form to be able to do that, and that's what this festival brings.
He put these groups together, and then when I look at the paper and I'm thinking about all the people that he put together, and I'm like, yeah, he really thought about that one. That's like a really good combination of people for that piece. It's like perfect.
In the beginning, it was a couple of weekends. I mean, literally half a dozen concerts with about half a dozen people. That expanded and became something which required more financing. They got to the iconic artist, George O'Keeffe. George O'Keeffe happened to love classical music. they managed to get her to support the festival through posters. That was a time when posters were huge. Everybody bought posters. She would donate an image, and they became rather ubiquitous. Apparently, there was one summer where they actually sold 150,000 posters. That was the support of the festival.
So in appreciation, every year, the festival would do a concert for her. She always dressed in her black outfit and looked very regal. So we went over to her place, and I chose to play a solo Bach piece. So I went right by her feet and played from memory the whole 20-minute Bach piece. And then she pulled me close to her and she said, "Thank you." That was amazing.
When it fell on me, this chamber music festival, I decided to continue that tradition. Our program cover is artwork by local Native American artists.
I do think that a successful musical performance is a real picture of how the world should work.
I was thinking that we would maybe let it roll if it's 8 at first.
People get along. It's about working out differences and about coming to an agreement, coming to a consensus. And people have differences of opinion, but still you have to try to create a consensus. That's what rehearsals are for.
Oh, you don't look silly at all. No, no, no. You don't look silly at all. Get off your horse. All right. Okay.
This was just so wonderful to arrive here and know that I get to play with friends who I've known for years.
How are you doing?
I'm good. Good to see you.
Paul Watkins is a very, very old friend of mine, and it feels like no time passes. You're just back playing together again.
A festival is a very particular dynamic because you come together, in many cases never having met before, and you have a sort of short, intense time together. So you've got a couple of days to get to know one another and put it together, and that brings with it this immediacy, this spontaneity, particularly with the level of players that come to Santa Fe.
Sorry I couldn't come. I was getting the cello fixed.
And I'm very fortunate to have an old Venetian cello from the 1730s. You know, it's not happy every day. The lack of humidity that can sometimes cause older instruments to buzz and complain at you a little bit. And my cello for the first 2 or 3 days in Santa Fe started complaining. So luckily there's an amazing luthier down in Albuquerque, so I took it down there, and it was a little bit like an episode of ER that they put it on a desk and they put an endoscope into it so they can have a little look around inside.
Then they put this camera inside it. Picture of it doing it. Wow. So they can see where the problem is, but they haven't got time to fix it because it takes days. Wow. But
Days?
Yeah.
So what are you going to do?
It's going to be, it's fine. It's fine.
Oh.
It's all right. It's just if I pluck the open, see it goes a bit. But it's not that bad.
I was after fixing it. Well, not fixing it, but putting nail varnish on it. I get cracked just before I left.
All right.
No, but I have a spare.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Wow, casualties.
I was putting the clarinet away to come over for the first rehearsal, and as I'm putting the clarinet away, I can feel there's a crack in the clarinet, and my heart just sank. I said, "Oh my God!" Like before the first rehearsal, and it was a big crack. So that was nerve-wracking. Luckily, I have a spare. I had been advised to put some clear nail varnish into the crack to try to hold it together.
You know, this is the first time in my life I've ever travelled with a spare clarinet.
Right.
Hey.
How are you doing?
I'm wonderful with American cancelling 4 out of flights yesterday that didn't fly. So I'm just about to finish. So,
Oh my God, take your time.
I'm flat!
This is now one of the most sophisticated audiences anywhere in the world. The musicians that come, and they're global, they're superstars, all remark about this audience. And I want to find a way where an audience is always comfortable having something they're familiar with, and at the same time being open to the expanse of what this music is. It became known that only the best people play here, that they love it, that the audience is magnificent, and everything surrounding it is beautiful.
It's impossible not to be inspired. The atmosphere of the city itself, the landscape, the nature.
It's a spectacular place to be. It's so beautiful here. The air, I don't know if you feel it, but I feel it. As a wind player, I feel it. But we're 7,200 feet closer to the sky. This flute that I'm playing on now has a really dark quality to it. I love the smoothness of it, the projection. It's a beautiful flute. The tube is a little bit lighter. The head joint is the heaviest part. It's 19.5 carat. And then the keys and tone holes, the things that come out of the tube, are 14 carat. The crown at the top has shamrocks on it, and I'm Irish, so it's really nice. I look for the smooth. I don't really want air in my sound. I want like just tone. So I like this flute a lot. It's a conduit for creativity. And when I pick up my flute and I put it here, it sits under my chin and I don't see it here. And I'm not really aware of it here because I have to be looking here. So I feel like the flute, in a way, is truly an extension of the human voice. My job is to transcend the mechanics of the instrument and have the composer's voice be heard so that you understand what the composer meant when he wrote or she wrote that music. That's what we have to do.
Every musician at the level that we're speaking about has an almost emotional, human relationship with their instruments. But these instruments each have a personality.
The clarinet, for me, just started as a thing I was interested in as a kid. And I always enjoyed practicing. I always enjoyed the sound of the instrument. I pick up the instrument and it sounds like, it's a great sounding instrument. You know, it's like really, it's a lifelong learning process. It's a life of independent study, basically. If you ever were in, you know, high school and you had a couple periods of high school that you could do what you wanted, that's basically my life in a certain way.
I don't think I have a relationship with my clarinet so much. That's a funny thing. I always think of the clarinet as a kind of a means to an end, in a way. I love what I can do with it.
I envision this as a community where over a period of years and years, their exposure and their knowledge of this music depends entirely on how I present it to them.
This year, I'm playing a piece by Karl-Heinz Stockhausen, German, one of the most famous composers of the 20th century. And I love that Mark was like, let's do this. It's a solo clarinet piece, and it's choreographed, basically. Stockhausen himself choreographed it. So I have to kind of dance and move, and the range of emotions of what you have to kind of convey is really, really broad. Like from very still, very focused, to absolutely fury and rage and exuberance.
I love the sound of the French horn. I love how it has expansiveness. New Mexico sky, you know, like mountain, you know, kind of grandeur type of thing. I love that it has that element to it. It's unpredictable, which is always entertaining and a little embarrassing because the notes are very close together and you control all the notes with your lips. You have to really make sure that your volume is not overwhelming to everybody else, because just one French horn is generally going to be louder than one violin or one woodwind instrument, unless you temper it. And also the articulation is very different. I love the artistic nature of it, and I love the spiritual nature of it. The honoring of the heritage and the history. I guess you find each other a little bit. And there's always sort of a bit of a hierarchy as to who's cueing what and who's leading what and who's under whom and when do you switch, you know, roles and stuff. So you kind of, you learn the piece a little bit on your own and then you learn the rest of it together. And that's kind of the fun thing, is sort of how it clicks. It's amazing how much you can sort of change your personal voice if you're playing with a flute or a clarinet versus a cello or a fiddle. And it's lovely for the soul, and it's really fun for the brain.
It's not like we're coming in and we're starting from scratch. Everybody's practiced their parts. I know exactly what everybody has in the group. They know what I have, and we're just putting it together. I would say like 90% is what are they doing and what are they doing? What am I hearing? And how does my part fit into that? And then when you play chamber music, you need to know when your voice is primary, when you're in a supportive role. It's like being in a big family, you know? You can't all talk at once. You have to support, but you also have to let everybody have their say.
Your reflexes have to be on really high alert because things happen all the time in performances that we haven't rehearsed for. And then you have to react and be right there.
You have to have skill like a sports person and everything that goes with that, the mindset, the discipline and all that. Then there's the expressive component. Then you have to figure out how to cultivate both of them and not get them mixed up. From here up, you have to be cool like a great sports person, ready to do something difficult. And below there, like a raging maniac baby reacting reacting emotionally without any filter to it.
There's pressure every time you pick up the instrument. If people are listening, paying to hear you play, that should give you some sort of responsibility, right? So in turn, that becomes pressure. But if you didn't feel the pressure, it wouldn't mean anything.
There's, of course, the expectation from oneself that is constant to try my best at all times. So there is that expectation and the daily sort of succeeding and failing. Recently, a wonderful conductor said to me, so fail, fail again, fail better.
The primary goal is to do what the composer has given you, where it touches not only your heart, but your mind. It makes you think. It may make you cry. It may make you angry. It may make you just elated, but that's the experience of art.
As a performer, when I'm on stage, I'm really in the zone of trying to communicate everything the composer put on the page and trying to express that to the audience. I'm really trying to focus on that marriage of looking at the details in the score and decoding what the composer was trying to convey. And so there's a lot of technical details that go into markings and also understanding the structure.
You have a piece of paper with some lines on it, and these little black dots and a few words here or there, or symbols. This is an insight with every detail that you need to know, exactly where and how and when to play every single sound that comes out of these instruments. Everything is in the score. There is, of course, room for personal interpretation.
My relationship with cello, it's kind of like a marriage, actually. It continually amazes me what it can do. Obviously, as musicians, we're sensitive to sound and color and timbre, all of these types of things. And with the cello, our low string is called a C string, and it's got real depth to it.
I love the cello. I've loved the cello since I was a kid. My dad wanted me to learn the violin. I didn't like it. It was awkward. I just loved the fact that the cello was much bigger than the violin. You could sit down playing it, and the bass notes, and just the warmth of sound, the resonance. I like to feel the vibration of the wood, the pine, the maple, the ebony of the fingerboard. I'm definitely what some musicians might disparagingly call a tone junkie, but if the cello isn't making me feel good, then I'm not going to get the best music out of it. So I'm going to do that.
There's a special joy that I get, and I think, you know, all instrumentalists get from actually touching the sound, having a kind of palpable, tangible relationship with the actual sound that's happening.
And the piano. The torture of being a concert pianist is you don't bring it with you. And what you find is your voice for that day. I have always gone to the person I know who has the best pianos in this country and picked for the summer, and I've known him long enough that I can get the best one there is. Still, if I have 10 pianists in the summer, 4 of them are going to love it, 4 of them are going to think it's okay, and there's going to be somebody who thinks, I really don't like this piano. But that's the nature of the beast.
The piano is important, incredibly, and the talent of these players is beyond me. I try to do my best, but it's fun. It's a challenge. It's a great piano to start with, so that makes my job a lot easier.
Mostly, if I go for concerts, it's to be expected there'll be a piano, and each piano differs from another. And of course, piano is perhaps one of the most independent instruments because it serves up an imitation of solo voices and accompaniment. You could also say that it's a portal into this magic world. It's a very strong mirror for your deficiencies, your fears, your discomforts, your strengths and weaknesses and preferences are on a platter every day. And there's something also harsh about going to face the mirror every minute that you play and every note.
We use all our body, actually, when we play the piano. If you want like a nice full sound production, we're trained to use big muscle groups to stay relaxed. And the harpsichord is incredibly delicate and small muscles around the fingers. I really enjoy that. It feels a little bit like handling very delicate china. The sense of rhythm is very different because you're a little bit more like a lute player. or sort of a plucked string instrument than a piano. I love playing it, and I really mean that on a simple physical level. It's been such a big part of my own particular journey in landscape.
One thing that is very particular about how Mark brings people together is the intergenerational aspect of Santa Fe, of bringing young up-and-coming artists together with established artists. This sense of passing of baton.
I'll follow in your footsteps.
I love to have composers around. We do a significant amount of commissioning of composers. So by taking them on a little excursion, I actually immerse them in the core elements of what this landscape, what this culture means to me. They have to have a certain sensitivity to not only their surroundings, but life itself, because the work of a composer is to reflect one's life. Learning better how to interact with great professional musicians, what seems to have the greatest impact is that afternoon. The tower was done by Roxanne and her mother, and we'll go look at the front door because the front door is very interesting. It's called a keyhole entrance. This is all based on Chaco Canyon, which is the 11th century site. So this place is kind of like a mini pueblo because all pueblos have these plazas, which are extremely important culturally and traditionally.
If you commission a work by a living composer, you're part of the history of that piece, and that lives long beyond you. And that's a beautiful gift to the art form. It's a beautiful gift to the future and to future generations of musicians.
We at Santa Fe Chamber Music Festival hold a deep belief in the value of music education. That's why we're here, and we will continue to be here for many years to come with our summer and our during the year education programs for youth in music.
I'm going with the guy in the hat. How long did it take to get to know our instruments? That's a great question. You guys ask wonderful questions. Like I said, I've been doing this since I was 5, and I'm still I practice all the time. I'm always getting to know my instruments, and that's one of the cool things about what we do is you never stop trying to get better.
What makes a good conductor? You often don't know, and that is because that little stick doesn't make any sound. In the best of circumstances, that little stick or the eyes of the conductor that's holding the stick can create something wonderful where the whole is greater than the sum of the parts.
Suffice it to say that conducting is a strange pursuit, and it's not clear always why one approach works and another doesn't. But when it's really, really clicking, nobody should have the sense that they're being managed, that they're being pushed, that it really becomes a shared effort. You're always listening to each other and always trying to help each other sound as good as possible. And there's this kind of generosity of spirit and willingness to support.
When you do that, everyone's sense of responsibility increases There's the bow of the principal bass. There's the sound of the breathing in the trumpets behind you. Your awareness has to be heightened in order to perform without a conductor.
In the end, all of us are just conduits for the composer. Ideally, when we play, it's not about us. It's only really about the composer and trying to squeeze the emotion or the ideas. But if you do it convincingly, there's something that they get from it that makes the experience irreplaceable of hearing live chamber music in a very intimate way like this. That's what we try to do.
So if you then take chamber music as being the gathering, that's my job, of these incredible individuals, the level of power emotionally, the level of communication is intense.
But I like it actually.
Yeah, it gives us somewhere to go.
Yeah,
Poco forte. Yeah,
I like it.
Sorry, one difference between the dashes and the actions. They could be I think more, yeah.
Yeah. One of the most significant French composers was Olivier Messiaen. And he specifically wrote this one piece, which is called the Quartet for the End of Time, which was composed in a Nazi concentration camp. It's monumental. It is written in a way where every one of these instruments, all four of them, need to be complete virtuoso, superstar athletic musicians, because Messiaen was very fascinated with rhythms. And the rhythms are quite complicated to perform. If there are iconic masterpieces, I want them to be played better than you've ever heard them. And so I picked these four people. In the case of the clarinet, she eats it up. She is the piece.
And it's one of those pieces that you're really laid bare, because I think if you're not willing to really open yourself 100%, be willing to really go to the edge and really look over and take those risks, even be willing to crash, even if that's necessary. There's a magic that happens when everyone is willing to kind of do that together, and we all can kind of have each other's backs and trust each other to support each other in going there and doing that. And that's a really privileged place to be and to feel on stage.
The long, extended solos, the clarinet. The cello piano. It takes great courage to play some of the tempi that he's marked, which is extremely slow. And then the violin piano. These are the things that I think just truly lift the soul into a different realm.
One movement involves the four instruments playing in unison. So they're all playing exactly the same thing at exactly the same time with this very complex rhythmic energy which just bursts out into the hall. Kinetic energy.
Why I've really loved the return visits over the years to Santa Fe is that it brought me into contact with, this whole other world of just fantastic chamber music players.
Can we do the end?
Yeah. Second half?
Last time?
Yeah. I need to be here, and I need to be with these people, and I need to be in this space. It's good for my soul, it's good for my head, it's good for my artistry. I feel like I grow when I play with people like this.
It's a very exacting profession we've chosen for ourselves. We try to execute at the highest possible level, and then on top of that, we try to make people feel something.
They are going to walk into this hall and walk out an hour or two later transformed. You've got humans sitting on a stage making vibrations in the air from these instruments which have been developed over hundreds of years, which are capable of doing that in a very sophisticated way. These vibrations have the capability of communicating emotions much better than language, much more direct. It brings us to a different place in our lives.
It's music making for all the right reasons.
you.